Good morning and welcome back to Seven Shepherd's Farm. Today I just want to go over kind of what we look for in a good guardian dog. Um, Here's Sam. He's one of the best. So I guess the main thing we look for is temperament. So if they are aggressive towards people in any way, they're not going to be staying on this farm. So we won't tolerate any kind of aggression towards people. We also, along the lines of temperament, we want them to come up to us and be able to actually catch the dog. So that's definitely a bonus to be able to catch these dogs. Um, like I said, Sam's probably our best dog here because he comes up to us. He's super friendly, but he also doesn't follow us out of the pen. So he's bonded on to the sheep. So that's another thing that we look for is they need to be completely bonded onto these sheep. Um, we do have them, obviously fenced in with electric, but the main thing that keeps these dogs in is they just don't want to leave the flock. So Molly's another one that's really good. Obviously, she comes right up to us too. She's super easy to catch. So another thing along the lines of this, we don't want them to be aggressive. For one thing, we have a lot of little kids. So obviously, when they come out and see the sheep with us and help us move the sheep, we don't want to have any risk of the dogs going after any of the kids. So, like I said, they need to be bonded onto the sheep because we don't want a dog that's going to be roaming around. So, any dog that's going to be getting out all the time is going to be an issue. You're going to have problems with your neighbors. They're not going to like having a dog on, getting out and running down the road or coming onto their property. So, uh, we don't let any of our dogs roam. Luckily, they're all broke really well to electric fence. So we have electric on pretty well all the fences that we have. So our dogs will not touch an electric fence. So, but roaming would be a huge issue. That's one thing we've noticed. We've always heard that Great Pyrenees are bad for roaming, and maybe they are. Most of ours have Great Pyrenees in them, but they're not full-blooded Great Pyrenees. We do have one that is, and that's Snow, and we bought her when she was like 8 years old, and she supposedly was hard to keep in, but we have never had an issue with her. So maybe I don't know, maybe our fence is tight, but we've never had an issue with any of our dogs roaming. But that's definitely something that we would get rid of a dog if they kept getting out all the time. If they're not in with the flock, then they're not doing their job. So we can't have that kind of liability. We're around too many highways and county roads. We can't have our dogs out all the time. So aggression and being bonded onto the flock and not roaming. Um, those are definitely some of the main things we look for in a guardian dog. Another thing we look for in a good guardian dog is they have to get along with the sheep. So they can't be just plowing through the sheep. They have to respect the sheep. So the sheep are the ones that make the money on the farm. So if the dog's constantly harassing them, running lambs, or even running a ewe, that's something we'll watch for, and we will correct that behavior when we see it. So a lot of times you only see that in pups. If you see it in a little puppy, 6 months old like that, it's not the end of the world. You can correct them. We just scold them basically. I mean, just holler at them whenever they do it, and that has always solved it for us. We've never had to do anything more drastic than that. Um, but if they're constantly harassing the sheep and they get older, so if they were like Sam, if he was still running sheep or running after lambs, we would definitely get rid of him for that reason. That's not something we would tolerate either. We've actually never, yeah, just we've had a couple of puppies run after some sheep and some lambs. If a lamb's running around by itself, a puppy might chase it and think it's fun to knock it down, and that's something we'll watch for. And then yeah, we'll just scold that dog whenever we see it do it, and that's always corrected that problem so far. And also, I think the main thing that keeps that from happening is having a good older dog in with them. So if you just have a bunch of little puppies, uh, you could have that problem where they're going to chase lambs and chase sheep because they don't have an older dog to correct them either when we're not out there. So that's something that it's really nice to have an older dog. Um, Snow, if I could find her, she was the dog that she basically trained every dog on this farm. So we bought her when she was like 3 or 4 years ago. She was 8 years old already then, and she's just a really good guardian dog. Um, we picked her up from a friend of ours with some sheep that they were getting out of the sheep business. So I think we bought like 6 or 8 or sheep from them, and luckily Snow was in with that group, and she was bonded on so well with those few sheep that when we turned them out with ours, I mean, she just bonded right onto ours too. So we've never had a problem with her. She's actually, I think she's laying down up here, but she does not tolerate any pup that's going to be running after a lamb. So Snow basically does our training. Uh, Hopefully she'll be around for a couple more years. But she's getting up there. She's 11, I think at least 11, maybe 12 even. And she kind of looks it right now. But she's just a really good dog. Uh, like I said, she doesn't really tolerate any pups going after any of the sheep. She's definitely the protector uh, and the matriarch for this flock. The other thing, they have to get along. The dogs have to get along with each other. So if we have a dog, I know everybody's got an alpha, and Sam's definitely our alpha in this pack, but he's not super aggressive towards these little pups. Now he might run them off every once in a while. Like he was gonna go eat, so he ran those other dogs just out of the dog feeder for a little bit, and you know that's fine. That's a dog. He's gonna do that when he's the alpha, but he's not gonna lay in front of that dog feeder all day and not let the other pups eat. If he did that, we would have to figure out something. We would probably move him out of this pen and or move the pups away or something. But the dogs have to be able to get along. So I've heard of other flocks having a problem with they'll have an alpha dog and they literally won't let the pups eat. If you get a new puppy or any other dogs eat out of the dog feeder. Well, we only have one dog feeder, so if he's not letting anybody else eat, they're going to try to find food somewhere, and that's going to be probably with the sheep. So that's not going to work. So, like I said, your alpha dog, uh, he can run them out of the feeder, but if he keeps all the other dogs from eating at all, that's not good. So we definitely look for that too. We make sure the pups are getting fed. Um, One thing you could do is put 2 dog feeders out. I mean, that would probably solve that issue pretty easily. But I don't really feel like moving 2 dog feeders all the time, so we just leave that one out. Like I said, they always let them eat. Um, Now, when you turn new dogs out, uh, if you bring in new guardian dogs in with your current guardian dogs, sometimes you will have them fight a little bit. Um, but if they were trying to kill the new guardian dogs, that would obviously be a problem. That's something, that's the temperament. We're not, we don't want anything that's going to be killing other dogs either. So uh, I guess we're kind of picky on our temperament. That's kind of the main thing. We just want a nice, gentle dog that's going to be out here with the sheep. It's going to lay down with the sheep, and then bark a lot at night. That's pretty well, their main job. That's about all we ask of them really, and move along with us when we move. So altogether, we have 14 guardian dogs right now. So we have 7 in with this flock, and then we have 6 over at the rental farm with that larger flock we have, and then we have one that's kind of like a house guardian dog. She guards the chickens and whatever's around the house there. So one thing, we have dogs kind of all over the place. So one thing, we don't want to have pups just any time of year, or we don't want to have pups all the time running around. So we do fix all of our guardian dogs at 6 months old, except for we do have Sam is still intact. So we have one male on this farm, and we have one male on the rental farm that's still intact. So, and we're actually going to be buying um, a female puppy here in the next week or two. We have her spoken for, so we need to pick her up in a couple weeks. We're going to leave her intact. That's the plan anyway. And she's going to be kind of our breeder dog if she turns out to be a really good dog like we think she's going to be. So we'll basically have one intact female then, and then 2 intact males. So if we can start kind of raising our own puppies basically. But the reason, yeah, like I said, the reason we don't leave them all intact is we'd have puppies all the time. They'd constantly be having puppies. So we don't want that. We want them to be focused on the sheep and not on raising puppies all the time. So we do fix, like I said, pretty well everything at 6 months old. So um, that can also be a means for correcting some behavior too. So if you have a dog that's a little bit high strung, if you fix that dog, a lot of times that will calm them down. So if you do have a puppy that's kind of running cheap, and you've corrected it a few times, if you fix the dog, a lot of times that'll calm them down enough to where they kind of mellow out after that. So that's a good management practice to help with that. And the other thing we like to see is we like when the dog knows its name. Now that can be tricky whenever you get like 3 or 4 puppies at one time because you're constantly just calling them the pups or whatever. So we have kind of trouble with these. We've kind of fallen away from that with some of these puppies because we had 3 of them at one time. But like Sam knows his name, Molly knows her name, Snow knows her name. So if I call their name, they will come to me or they'll know when I'm correcting only that dog. So that's something, it's not a deal breaker if they don't know their name, but it sure does help, especially when you're correcting the dogs. Or if you have one that's like, you know, hanging behind whenever you're moving, you can holler at their name out to them and they'll come to you. So that's definitely something we like to see. It's not a deal breaker, but it's definitely a nice to have. So most of the things that we look for, I guess, in a guardian dog is kind of behaviors that we don't want them to do. We don't want them to run sheep. We don't want them to get out. We don't want them, to fight with each other. We don't want them to be aggressive towards people. But so we don't really ask them to do a whole lot. We just want them to bark at night, keep the predators away, stick with the flock, lay amongst the flock during the day. Um, that's pretty well, you know, we try to give them a really good life out here, and we just want them to behave and not stress the sheep out and protect them from anything that comes into this pen. So we don't want them to get out to run after something either. So that's the main things that we look for in guardian dogs. What do you guys look for in guardian dogs? Just leave a comment and let me know the characteristics you look for in a good guardian dog. Thank you for watching.